All right, we are live. Welcome in. Welcome into the next webinar, Brand Your Practice webinar. And I have with me Nate Hendriske from Navigator Bookkeeping. Nate does my books. He does several of my clients' books. And it's really good to have you on the webinar today as we talk about how to launch a private practice in 2025.
Yeah, I am excited about this topic. It's something that a lot of the clients that we both work with are thinking about and have thought about and have gone through. But it's exciting thinking about, hey, if we were to start from scratch, how would we do this and really optimize this? So I think this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, was this your idea or was this my
I
idea?
think it was. I think
Okay.
it was, but you took it and ran with it, which is usually how it goes.
Yeah, no, it was a really good idea because the game has changed. The game has changed in launching practices these days. And I'll talk about it in just a minute, but if I was to launch a practice, it would be a little different. It'd just be a little different than when I launched my wife's practice, 8 years ago now, and helped other practices along the way. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're streaming on StreamYard and also on the YouTube. I'm curious if you could put in the chat though, before we jump in, put in the chat for me. Are you planning, if you're here and you're live, are you planning to start a private practice in 2025 or thinking about it? Have you already started one and you're just like, I want to see what Brent and Nate have to say if you're trying to maybe retool your practice a little bit. So let us know if you're looking to launch your own. And here's the other thing is this is going to be kind of like a rapid succession of slides. So we're going to be talking about this. I would love for you guys to put questions. Oh yeah, thanks, Amanda. Already have. Okay. So we got some people who already started one. I'm just curious what we have to say. I love that. Cindy, already in practice, definitely looking to upgrade. So yeah, we're going to go through this and ask questions in the chat. That's the best way to do it. Nate and I are going to be monitoring it. We want this to be a conversation. All right, Libby's looking to start her own. All right, Samantha's looking to launch in the next couple of months. Jennifer is looking to start in 2025. Okay, this is great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Exciting
Roger, hey,
stuff.
Roger, expanding is his thought to share with us today. Awesome, let's go. I'll say, Joan here, have one, need to build a website, focus on building a full fee practice. Yep, that's great. I think that's the best way to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to get to this other view here. See if I got we got to let Nate in here. Keep Nate in. All right, so here we go. How to launch a private practice in 2025. Please put comments below as well. I need to get over to my slides here. Actually, maybe I can do this right here. All right. So what do practice owners want? Well, practice owners who are looking to start their own practice, they want a simple way to get going because there are a lot of things that are involved in starting a practice. So this is going to be, they want a step-by-step process to launching a practice. The problem is they don't know where to start, and you might be feeling overwhelmed by the idea of starting a practice. So we're going to help you out with that today. I'm Brent Stutzman. I consider myself a full stack marketer. What does that mean? I've done all the marketing things. And when I say all the marketing things, I've done all of them, but TV ads. Just anything I've done has not shown up on cable television, but I've shown up just about everywhere else. Full stack content creator. So I've done all the video, podcasting, webinars, all those things. And for 5 years, I was a certified story brand guide. But for some on our chat today, could be helpful. But story is going to be a huge part in starting a practice. Since 2000, let's see, my son is now 8 years old. So since the last 8 years, when I pivoted into this full time, I've helped launch and scale up private practices across the country. And my mission is to help launch, grow, and scale 30,000 private practices by 2030. This was 10,000 like a few weeks ago, but then it started to grow. Like we would hit that number in 2 years. So I wanted a bigger mission for myself and for my team. And the way I kind of think about that is through the different like businesses and entities that I own and co-own with my wife. So for example, a Play Therapy Toolbox is e-courses for play therapists. So how many email subscribers and students do we have in there? TheraSAS is an intake CRM. So how many subscribers do we have into that platform? The private pay practice program is Dr. Deb Legge and I, how to scale up how do you start and grow a private pay practice? So how many students do we have? How many students on our email list that we're supporting? And then brand your practice as well. So those are all doing well. And those all go towards the 30,000 number. So we're on our way. And Nate, you want to take a second to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, could I call myself a full stack bookkeeper? Is that, I don't think that's a
Yeah,
term, but
go for it.
we'll go with it. But yeah, I own Navigator Bookkeeping. We have been around for 6 years, 6.5 years, and we've been really deep into private practice for the last 2 to 3, actually from a connection with Brent, working together and kind of going from there. So yeah, we love private practices. We just got back from a private practice conference. Brent was also there actually, and just love talking to practice owners about their financial story, about their bookkeeping, QuickBooks. But really what we want is we want all practice owners to really feel confident in their numbers and be able to use that confidence to make decisions and move forward in their practice without kind of any, money guilt or shame or any of those kind of negative emotions. We want them to feel confident in the numbers, not have to worry about those, and kind of go from there. So yeah, we also work with practices all over the US. I don't have a cool map like Brent. I'll have to get one. Actually, I have one on my wall, but I will not, move the camera over there. But we're in 22 states. We have practices in 22 states. So it's always fun to talk to practice owners from all over the US and see what they have going on.
That's right. Yeah. And there's a lot of emotions around finances. And what I
Mhm.
appreciate about Nate is like numbers don't care about your feelings. And you need that objective look at your numbers, especially your finances when you're running a practice. So, all right, let's jump in, Nate. Okay. So here's the
To
plan.
it.
We're going to start with why, and then we're going to jump over to talking about a business plan and what that looks like. We're going to talk about software and services, and then building a sales funnel. And I'm pretty sure that's in that order. But please, again, we are looking for you all to leave questions for us in the chat. So leave any question. We'll take a minute and answer those. All right, here we go. Let's jump in. All right. So yeah, for our purposes here, we are calling this practice Acme Child Counseling. And there's a reason behind that. So, all right, for Acme Child Counseling, we're going to start with why. So when you're starting a practice, you want to start with your why. And there's a couple areas around this that you want to be focusing on when it comes to starting with your why. And the why is important because when you are launching a practice and you're growing your practice, some of you know this in the chat, it is emotional. It's very emotional. There's a lot of anxiety. And those moments that are going to help you push through those parts of the launching a practice that you just want to give it up, right? Just throw it all away and give it up. You want to know your why. So what is your why? And I like to think about understanding your why in 3 areas. So the support, like, why do you want this business? Is it in what area of your life do you want to support yourself, your family, and then your community? I like to think about, like, what if you don't do this, right? So what's going to be missing in your life? What's going to be missing in your family? What could be potentially missing in your community if you don't start your private practice? And think of it that way. So as you start, like, what's going to be missing? What is it about me and my training that I have something to offer? And if I don't do this and starting a practice, what would be missing in my community, in my life, and in my family? And I think that's an important place to start because it's going to be really hard. And you're going to have to dig deep in those moments, the dark nights of the soul in the entrepreneurial journey to get going. So I'm curious, Nate, if you have anything to add to that. But I think starting with your why, that foundation is going to be pretty important.
No, I think that's great. I mean, running a business is, as we said, it's emotional. It's ups and downs, right? In the 6 years I've been running this business, there's times that you're like, this is the best thing I've ever done. And there's times you're like, why am I doing this? Right. You're going to get both of that no matter what when you're running a business. So I love this because you got to remember that why behind it. For me, I started a business because I wanted flexibility with my family. I wanted to be around for my wife and kids, wanted to be around. Maybe it's something similar for you, maybe it's something different. But if you don't have that, like Brent said, you're going to be kind of on shifting sands when times get tough. You're like, maybe I'll just go back and work for somebody else. So it's good to have that foundation, that firm foundation. You always come back to be like, oh yeah, I do remember why I'm doing this, and hopefully give you some perseverance in those tough times.
Yeah. And also no shame. Like, if money is a part of that, that's okay. Like, that's
Yeah.
okay. I know there's a lot of shame around money in the therapy world, right? Especially when you're charging, like, full fee. No shame. It's okay to want to be able to provide for your family or support yourself more. That's totally fine. All right, let's jump on to the next one. How much do you need to pay yourself? And I'll hand this over to Nate for a second.
Yeah, I just replying to a comment here. There will be a replay of this. So if Danielle was asking if there's gonna be a replay because of freezing tech issues. So yeah, this will be on YouTube, and that'll be all on there. Yeah. So how much do you need to pay yourself? So this is a really key question, and I talk to a lot of practice owners about this when they're starting out, or even when they're further down the road, because this can determine a lot of the kind of key metrics you need to start tracking, right? Like, how many sessions do we need to do in a month? How much revenue do we need to bring in? All of that really can work backwards from how much you need to pay yourself. And how I usually like to think about it is, there's a couple different numbers here. There's your number you have to get paid to meet your monthly bills, right? Like, hey, I need to pay my mortgage and buy groceries, so I need at least X amount of money. And then there's also the amount of, hey, I would like to make this amount of money. So it might be even a number of, I have kind of a minimum and then I have kind of an ideal, but it's good to know both of those so that when you start the practice, you at least have some benchmarks in mind, to start figuring out, hey, how many sessions do I actually need to start pulling in to make this business profitable and pay myself what I need to pay those bills.
Yep. Yep. Just get that base mark like that. It's going to help a lot, like just on the psychology of launching. And you'll be surprised. You're like, actually, I just need to get the bare minimum. I just need to see like 6 clients a week. Right. And you're like, it could be possible.
Yeah.
Work backward to figure out how much revenue is needed per month to crack your monthly nut. Figure out the average dollar per visit. Figure out possible capacity, how many visits you need to pay yourself after saving taxes. Yeah, maybe this is diving a little deeper into this.
Yeah, and I think, you can use a pretty simple spreadsheet to figure this out. Honestly, you don't need any crazy tool or anything like that. But on the screen here, it says figure out your average dollars per visit. That's going to be kind of the key metric here, because that's going to change things drastically. So if you're a private pay practice, that number is probably going to be quite a bit higher than if you're insurance based. But either way, and depending on where you are in the US as well, but whatever that number is, you're going to need that to figure out, okay, if that number is $120, now I can figure out, multiply that number by, 20 sessions in a week. What does that come out to? And then we can start to figure out how much revenue you can actually bring in. There's some other things to think about there. You want to think about taxes, as far as how much do you need to set aside for taxes? What are your costs? But if you're just starting out as a solo practitioner, this is pretty straightforward. It's figuring out, what's my dollars per session? How many sessions am I going to do? How much revenue is that? And then just figuring out, take that total revenue number, subtract out taxes, subtract out costs, and you have left over, what you could pay yourself, to kind of go along that route.
Yeah. I'm going to see if I can actually share this up here. Okay, cool. So I shared a link in the chat. It's my startup guide. And somewhere down there on the startup guide, I do have a link to this little budget. And I know, Nate, you might have a little budget too, but this is literally like the first thing that we created at Kid Matters 8 years ago, just to see how much, and it doesn't have to be much, but, gives you idea of what you might need to be paying for your business, like that monthly nut. So just kind of get started with that. Play around with some numbers. It doesn't have to be, and ask around. If you don't know what like water or natural gas, or if you have a triple net lease or something like that, you could, ask around how much is other people in the building, how much things might cost for utilities and other things as well. So I wanted to share that resources.
Yeah. And just one other thing I'd say is that, once you figure out this number, it gives you a lot of freedom and a lot of confidence. And that's, I think, the theme of a lot of what I talk about just in general is, when you know your numbers, you have freedom.
Yeah.
Because whether it's a good picture or a bad picture, you at least know what the picture is, right? So when I've had this conversation with a lot of practice owners, it's been really freeing to them to be like, oh, I actually, like you said earlier, Brent, I only need maybe 5 more sessions a week to get to that revenue goal. It's like, oh, well, that actually is very attainable. It doesn't, feel far off. Whereas if you're just saying, I need $3,000 more a month, that can feel impossible. So just going through this exercise, and again, I think with anything, when you're starting out, or even if you're already going, your numbers don't have to be perfect. Just get them close. 75% of the way is going to do most of the work, compared to being like 100% down to the cent perfect. So just get close. That's going to be a lot of freedom, and I can probably guess that it's going to be more attainable than you thought it was, once you kind of work out those numbers and see how many sessions you actually do need to do.
Yeah. Short story before we go on. When we were doing this, we had a very small amount of savings, but when we first started out, I think it was like it's only going to cost us maybe $600 a month just to get going. Like, what's the bare minimum just to get going, right? And you're like, well, that's pretty easy. And then of course other things will come into play, but I think that's going to be helpful to get those numbers down. All right, let's talk about a business plan. Choose a niche, population, or symptom to be yourself. So that's not a well spelled out word. So I'm thinking symptom is what. All right. So the reason why we're calling this Acme Child Counseling. One thing that has changed a little bit is in the commoditization of therapy. And here's what I mean by that is with BetterHelp and all these other really large venture capital backed businesses coming in, they're outspending all the mom and pop shops, making a therapy more accessible to people, but also taking up a lot of market share. And so I was thinking, all right, if I was starting from today, I want to have a very clear niche. And the one thing that I think could be helpful is for those especially focusing on children, because as a parent, the last thing I want to do is to have my child sit in front of another screen for therapy. So sometimes it's necessary, right, in the rural areas. But if I was going to do a brick and mortar, and I would recommend having an office space, the niche would be children and teen. That's going to be very hard to be disrupted by what I call big therapy or the venture-backed businesses out there. I think you could also have Acme couples counseling, something, but you need a niche. And I'll say this: another reason why you need a niche. People are looking for specialists. So I usually do say the analogy would be if you had to choose a heart surgeon because you needed heart surgery, and you were given two options. You said, okay, here is this guy, Dr. Heart Surgeon. He does heart surgeries all day long, and this particular procedure that you need done, that's all he does. And you can choose him or another guy that also does heart surgery, but also does brain surgery 50% of the time. So which one are you going to choose for the person who's going to open you up and work on your heart? You're probably going to choose the one who does heart surgeries all day long. And it's similar with people who are looking for help for the most intimate, like mental health issues that they're struggling with. They want someone who they can trust to help them with that problem. So niching down, having a specialty, either around symptoms or a demographic in the population. So that's kind of my thing. If you want to add anything to that, Nate.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, niching down is also really helpful from a referral perspective. Think about your community and referral partners you have. If someone comes to them and just says, hey, I need therapy, they have so many therapists and practices to choose from. But if you specialize in, let's say child therapy, and they're like, hey, I have a 7-year-old who needs therapy, that referral partner can then lock in their mind, oh, I know this person who does just child therapy, right? So much more easy to make that referral because there's many less practices to think about, and your practice sticks out with that niche. So I do really love that about a niche. It really helps you stick out in referral partners' minds. Yes, you will repel some potential clients, and that's okay. But your ideal client is going to be a lot more, it's going to be a lot easier to get referrals from referral partners because they're just thinking of you. You're that person who does that specific thing. It's going to make that a lot easier. So, from a marketing perspective too, I know I'm not the marketer on this call, but from a referral perspective, that can be really a helpful thing.
Yeah. And there's also SEO, search engine optimization showing up on Google. There's some other things that having a niche will make it a lot easier, and which we may jump into. Let's see here. Cindy's asking, let's see here. Jackie had a quick question. I was told the factor of taking about 40% off the top for taxes and costs. Thoughts? So 40% off your gross of what you bring in.
Yeah, it looks like Cindy has a similar question. Hi, Cindy. By the way, I know Cindy. Cindy's great. So 2 questions about taxes. So there's a lot of ways to think about this, and a lot of it comes down to what type of business you are, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. As far as, are you an LLC? Are you an S corp? How does that all work? I would say when you're thinking about taxes, the easiest way to kind of think about it without getting into all the variables and things like that is look at your profit. So the number all the way at the bottom of your profit and loss, right? It's revenue minus expenses equals profit. So profit's what's left over. Take that profit number and multiply that by somewhere between 20 and 30%. And that should give you a pretty good benchmark for how much you want to set aside for taxes. If you're someone who's a little more cautious and wants to oversave, go more towards the 30%. If you're like, hey, I'm okay if we're a little undersaved or we're really close, go closer to the 20%. But if you set aside somewhere between 20 and 30% of taxes, you should be in a pretty good place as a solo practitioner or even as a small group practice. That shouldn't be a problem. And then after that point, it could get a little bit more complicated, but that's a pretty decent rule of thumb.
Yeah. And I would say in the first year, if you're just starting, just save a little bit. The chances of your tax liability from just starting out from scratch as you build your caseload isn't going to be that large getting going. Insurance-based versus private pay. Oh man. So we just got back from the Wise Practice Summit, and the insurance stories we heard were like horrific. And some of you know this with the clearinghouse and other stuff. So here's what I would say. If Acme Child Counseling, we are going private pay 100%. Here's why. You can actually let the market determine what what your quote unquote worth is. You can set your rates. What else can you do? You can set your rates. You can also adjust your rates a little bit more too. If it's too high, that's okay. You can always play around with it a little bit. But your insurance based is you're typically you're not being reimbursed as much. I was asking a client of mine, when was the last time Blue Cross Blue Shield actually increased their rates, your reimbursement rates? Is it in line with the inflation that we're experiencing as well, right? So there's insurance companies do not increase rates based on inflation, and they're incentivized to not pay back as much. Mm-hmm. However, it's also okay to have, if I was doing the Acme Child Counseling as we're launching it, if I was needing to do insurance, I would choose the highest payer, just choose one to get that going. It's a little bit if you go all in on the insurance, and again, this could go back to your mission. One is you end up probably having to pay a biller, which is usually an insurance or a percentage take out on that. Could be 4%, 6% of whatever they get back from the insurance company for you. So that's extra overhead cost. And then you have the lower reimbursement rate. For me as a business owner, there's really two revenue levers you can pull. Is you can see more clients to make more revenue, or you could raise your rates. If you're primarily insurance-based, raising your rates really isn't a lever of revenue that you can pull down to earn more. So private pay gives you a lot more freedom, and it's also where a lot of the market's going. A lot of people want that, and so yeah, that's Acme Child Counseling. We're going private pay. We're going to go private pay.
Private pay. Let's do it.
Office location. Okay. Things that I did not know about when we first started Kid Matters and others, which I wised up to. Office location matters for two things. One, Google business profile. You need a physical office in order to have a Google business profile. And why is that important? Well, if I don't have the slides to show me, but if you type in counselor near me, and we're in Chicagoland, 6 out of the 7 results are going to be from directory sites like Psychology Today, Headway, Better Health. People who have deep pockets to spend on marketing. Those organic slots and the paid slots are going to be taken. However, Google does have the Google business profile, which is their Google Maps. You do have an opportunity to show up on that list because big therapy and the big venture capitalists, they don't have office locations. And Google does have a little part of their search engine reserved for local mom and pop shop. So that's why I would say having some sort of office location is good. It puts you, embeds you into the community that you serve. And what was the other reason? Oh, when you're thinking about office locations, I want you to see where you are on the Google Maps. So this is one example. Some offices are located in one zip code, but just 300 feet away could be another zip code. And so when you showing up for a child therapist near me, you may not show up in that other zip code that's 300 feet away. So you want to think about your office location as it relates to the kind of population density of who you might be serving. And because the way Google determines how to show you certain results of local businesses is proximity to the business location and where you're searching. So That's one thing on office location. It's probably a little bit more than you needed. Here's one other thing about office: start small. See if you can sublet
Mhm.
one. If you want to just rent for 1 day a week or 2 days a week, see if you can sublet low, try to find a month to month, and try to find, and landlords love office spaces that they don't have to like knock down walls or put up walls. You
Right.
can get more favorable terms there. And I'll say one more thing is try to find I think it's called a gross lease. So things are included in the rent so you're not having to pay taxes, you're not having to pay water. And there's like a third one, like gas, like your utilities. Usually you want to try to find a way that you're only paying for electricity and internet. So
Right.
keeps it simple.
Yep. And that's what I was going to say is, start small, because we see so many practices that start large. They have big dreams of like, hey, we want to grow into this big group practice, but they have this huge space that's just not getting used, right? There's not therapists in there. There's
Yeah.
not sessions happening. And you're just kind of getting saddled with that really high rent payment. So yeah, start small. Is it going to be a headache moving? Yes. But from a financial perspective, so worth it, instead of just being stuck and really getting that profitability eaten away by that extra rent, extra utilities. And honestly, furnishing an office can be so expensive. So you
Yeah.
really want to try to do that piecemeal if you can, instead of trying to furnish 5 offices all at once, because those furnishing costs will easily get into multiple thousands, tens of thousands of dollars quickly. So
Unless
um,
you're a thrifter, if you, well,
yeah,
actually Goodwill doesn't have furniture anymore. But you can find it. Yeah.
Facebook
It can add up
Marketplace.
pretty quick. Facebook Marketplace. That's right.
And I'll
Uh,
just give one quick thing, Brent,
yeah.
as a metric. We usually like to see small practices spending somewhere between 5 to 9% of revenue on rent, if possible. Now, I know when you're starting off, that metric might be a little bit more wonky, 'cause if you are scaling up to a group, especially. But just to give you kind of a metric in mind, if you're thinking, we're going to have $10,000 in revenue per month, use that 5 to 9% as kind of a rule of thumb to figure out how much the rent should actually cost there, and then go from there.
Yeah. Samantha asked here, does moving office locations impact Google business profile situation? Yeah, if you get a brand new address, it can. If you update your Google business profile, your reviews will follow you. Um, you might have to re-verify it, but it could impact search results, like when you actually show up. So if you're in a location that's densely populated, and you move to a rural area or more rural area, you may not show up as much, especially if you start to get out. So if you go into Google and just see where they draw the lines, actually, I don't know, would it be helpful just to kind of see this real quick? Just kind of give an example,
Yeah.
maybe. Let me see here. All right. So a couple things to consider. Let me bring it up here. All right. So you can see here, I just typed in DuPage County right here. So you can see the outline of DuPage County. This is Cook County in Chicago. Like if you cross over that line, like you may not show up. That's from a county result. Let's say, let's see, Glen Ellen, Illinois here. So if you're moving over outside of this, and you move to Wheaton, people searching like therapist near me or therapist Glen Ellen, you may not show up because you're actually in Wheaton now. So take a look and see where Google draws the boundary lines. This is how Google determines Google business search results in a way. There's a lot more. There's a couple more things that go into it, but I just wanted to kind of show you as an example. All right. Budget. I think we kind of touched on that already.
Yeah.
LLC versus S Corp, Nate. This is all you, man.
Yeah, let's talk about this. This is a great one. So part of the process, which I think we have in the subsequent slides, is getting your EIN, all those things. Really, when you're thinking through the process of kind of the legal aspect of the business, and I'm not an attorney, so I'm not, just going to be clear, I'm not giving you legal advice here, just things to think about. But the first thing you're going to do is get an EIN. That's going to come from the IRS, and that's very simple to do. Takes 5 minutes. That's just your identification number with the IRS for anything. So that's free. It's easy. Do that first. Then the next step is you're incorporating, which is happening with your state. So whatever state you live in, you're going to become some sort of business entity. And the reason for that is that's really going to protect you and protect the business from liability. So an LLC, for example, is set up to protect you from any liabilities from the business and to protect the business from any liabilities from you, meaning that if someone sues you personally, that can't affect the business. Business money can't get taken, things like that. If someone sues the business, your personal money can't be taken. There's a wall, they call it, I think, a veil, the corporate veil, right between the two. So you're going to want to do some sort of incorporation to create that. If you're just running as a sole proprietor with no legal status, you're opening yourself up to some liability danger, right? It is cheaper to do it that way, but I would definitely recommend do some sort of uh, incorporation here. So you can set up as an LLC or as a corporation. Those are usually your two options. If you're a corporation, you can be an S corp or a C corp. If you're an LLC, you're an LLC, you're a single member LLC, or if there's more than one of you, you might be a partnership. Or you might, in your state, might have a PLLC, which is a professional limited liability company. It's basically the same thing, just states do that differently. So all those options I gave you, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, you don't really want to be a C Corp. There's corporate tax on that. It's very complicated. That's, not something we even really want to think about in this case.
That's
so you
if
have
you're
pretty
having
much,
multiple shareholders and you want to eventually sell someday, right? That's like venture capital, right?
You're going to get nasty taxes. Don't do that. So you're going to be basically an LLC or an S Corp. So I'd say either way, you want to start out as an LLC, as an entity. And then what you can do as an LLC is you can either be taxed as a sole proprietor or you can be taxed as an S Corp. So it's interesting, right? With both of those, you're still an LLC as a legal entity, but the IRS is viewing you either as an S Corp or as a single member LLC. So your first, think of it as like going down the road, right? Your first branch in the road is LLC or corporation. I would suggest going down the LLC route because that keeps your options open. If you go down the corporation route, you have to be either an S Corp or a C Corp. You can't be an LLC. You're stuck with that. So first choice, pick an LLC, set that up. You're automatically going to be set up as a single member LLC unless there's more than one owner. And then you can decide to elect as an S Corp later on down the road. Now, what I see a lot of practice owners do, and it seems to be kind of this movement around some accountants and attorneys, they just tell business owners, set up as an S Corp right away. And I really don't like that because an S Corp is going to be more expensive to file taxes for. You're going to have to set up payroll right away for yourself. There's a lot more regulations, rules, and expense without much tax savings. The tax savings for an S Corp election usually doesn't come in until you're somewhere north of $100,000 in profit per year. Not in revenue, in profit, right? So that's something that you want to kind of keep in your back pocket, be able to do eventually. But I would say set up as an LLC, single member LLC, just keep your taxes that way. Don't elect S Corp right away. And then, hey, if things go really well and you start raking in a lot of profit, great. Then you can always elect as an S Corp. You have to do it in the first 3 months of the year. And you can talk to an accountant about doing that. But I would always keep that just as an option instead of doing that initially. But I see a lot of CPAs and attorneys pushing people to kind of get into that right away. It's probably because they can charge more for tax returns, if I'm being a little cynical there. So I would just say, hey, push back against that. You'll be great if you're a single member LLC. Everything is more simple. You can pay yourself, and you do pay yourself just through distributions. It's very easy. You just transfer money. You don't have to do payroll. So yeah, definitely recommend kind of going that route. There's obviously a lot more with that conversation, but that's my very quick version.
Yeah. And we start up, Kid Matters, the first practice my wife and I did, that was an S Corp and it worked out okay,
Yeah, no, it's not end of the world.
You know what I mean? Like if you're like, oh, an S Corp, that's fine. Now, the other thing is do not pay a lawyer $3,000 to do this. I've done it. I've paid a lawyer like $1,500 and that's when we first started. And then other things like Swift filing and others, like it's pretty easy to set up. Most states are very pro small business. They want you to start a business. Most states, I don't know about California, they want you to start, but most are. And so they make it easy for you to set it up. So I don't know, it's like a Swift filing or whatever. I've used them for several businesses. So it works out. Yeah. Okay. We did talk about naming your practice a little bit. And I would say, try to have counseling or therapy or your niche or something in your name. It helps with SEO. It also just helps with general clarity. Try not to pick a name that's very vague. You want something that's recognizable. So don't get overly clever with the name. Don't use any irony or metaphors that could be confusing. I like having names straightforward, and having counseling or therapy in your name can be really helpful on a lot of reasons. So I won't belabor that anymore. EIN registration with the feds. This is frustrating, but you can get it done.
Yep. Yeah, and as I mentioned, this is your first step. Just do this quick. It's all online. It's pretty straightforward. You're just gonna get a number. Make sure you save that. Keep it somewhere. You're gonna use that for tax filing and a lot of other things.
And you
You
also
also need it
probably
for
use
your
it.
online for your bank account. Yeah.
Yeah, you need it for your bank account, and you may need it to register with your state. All right, so you're
You
going to
will.
register
Yep.
your business with the state, and again, like LegalZoom and other places, like they kind of help you walk through this. Also, don't pay
Mhm.
for the gold packages or whatever the most expensive packages are for those. You really
Yeah.
don't need it.
They're
Just
gonna
choose
try to
one that
sell
will
you on
actually
a registered
register with the
agent.
IRS for you. Like, just let them. Like, that's what I like. Just, hey, if you guys are going to register with the IRS for me, that'd be great. Get that going. Make sure I'm set up with the state.
Yeah, they're gonna create your articles of organization with the state. They'll get all that set up. They'll send you a packet with your articles of organization, which you will need for a lot of things, like setting up a business bank account, a lot of other
Yeah.
pieces. But then they're gonna try to sell you other things like, "Hey, we'll be a registered agent. You have to have a registered agent." All these things. You can be your own registered agent. Just look into that. It's pretty straightforward. So
Are
yeah,
you
just don't
are
get
you your
oversold
own
there.
registered agent?
I sure am. Yeah,
Man,
and then
okay,
I have
I'm not.
employees in
I'm
other
not. May
states, and they
maybe
are
I'm
the
a sucker
registered.
paying $150 a year for someone else to
I mean,
do
I'm not gonna call you a sucker, but, even if you have so we have employees in other states, right? So we have to register with those states as well,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
those employees can be registered agents. So you don't have to pay someone separately to do it. You can find someone to do it, even if it's like a friend or a family member, you know, there's a lot of ways to do that.
Yeah. Open a bank account. Alright, so I've had people clients use, credit unions, local credit unions, or big banks like Chase and Truist and others. In my opinion, for your business, try to work with a bigger player because it all
Mhm.
comes down to software. Because you're gonna be connecting your
Yeah,
software with Stripe to receive payments from your EHR or connecting with QuickBooks. And I've just seen things break left and right with smaller mom and pop banks. I'm all about local
yeah.
small business. You can maybe try to have a savings account with them or something. But when you're moving cash in and out like crazy,
Mhm.
um, uh, it- you just want something that has a robust app to it. So like
Yeah.
Chase works pretty good. Truist, I've seen other banks. So yeah, that's kind of my
Mhm.
thing on that.
100%. I've seen all the banks because we're diving into banks with clients, and yeah, I love Chase. Their interface is really easy to use. They're not going to
It's
be
their savings,
as
right? Because as a bookkeeper, you can just automatically give your bookkeeper access to statements for
right.
reconciliation. Yeah.
Makes it very easy. And there's some local banks which just make it so hard. We have to go in and have a physical appointment to give other people access, or if you want to open another account. Yeah, so I'd say, same as Brent. I love small businesses. You find a different way to utilize them. Maybe if you need a loan or a line of credit, you could utilize them. But for your kind of bread and butter bank accounts, savings accounts, use a big player. They're going to have great apps. They're going to integrate easily with software, and they're probably honestly going to be just easier to use in general. And it's just not going to break as often. Giving access to other people can be really a hassle otherwise.
Yeah.
So are we
Uh,
going with Chase, Brent, for Acme? We going with Chase?
yeah, yeah. Chase is, yeah, Acme Child Counseling is definitely going to have a Chase.
All right,
Just
we're going with
it's
Chase.
familiar and I know it works. Create a Stripe account for accepting payments. You need your EIN number for that, and you're going to need a bank account for that because Stripe is the middleman. Oh man, I wish I didn't create a Stripe. It's like a toll booth business. Every time someone swipes a credit card, Stripe, an angel gets its wings. Stripe gets more wings on its angel. So you're going to set up a Stripe account to be able to charge credit cards from your EHR, like Simple Practice, Therapy Note, something, and Stripe will organize the back end of that. I don't know. Actually, Simple Practice might be so deeply integrated with Stripe, you may not even a Stripe account. So but check that out. But you'll need a Stripe account. All right, let's talk about some software. Oh man, we are going. This is
Quick
40 minutes. Yeah.
quick banking question from Samantha here. She said,
Oh,
"Thoughts on the online only business banking versus a bank with a physical location? What do you think?"
that's a good question. I'm more comfortable going just online banking. Like Mercury is a great bank. One of my businesses uses Mercury, and it's awesome. Very easy to use. I'm trying to think if you need checks and things like that.
Yeah, checks could be something that could be helpful to have. What you could do is you
Yeah.
could use a large bank like a Chase, and then yes, they have physical locations just as a backup if you need them, but there's still you can do everything online. So
I've also gotten checks from Vistaprint. So I've ordered checks from Vistaprint.
Yeah, you can get
You know,
around it.
yeah.
I mean, as long as they have mobile check deposit, because you're probably going to be receiving some checks in some way,
Mhm.
that's the key thing. But most banks have that nowadays. So yeah, you probably could go online only.
I
I
like
don't know,
Mercury for that.
preference.
Mercury's a good bank for that. Um, okay, software and services, EHR for your operations. So for each one of your systems of your business, operations, finances, marketing, you need some sort of software to. So 98% of my clients no, they use simple practice. They may not always love it, but from what I see, it's really good out there. Therapy Notes, I think, is also does pretty well. So those are really kind of and Jane. Some people really love Jane too, although it's not just specific for mental health. They're Canada based software,
Canadian. It's
and I did a demo with them, and it looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. So, but I know Simple Practice and just recommend them. So, I don't know if you want to say any more about that for
no, I don't.
your
I don't have
person.
much there. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a lot of options, but
You will need something like Google Workspace, like the G Suite for email. They sign a BAA. There's no additional fee for that. You can probably get the business at $6 or $8 a month for an email address, and you need that.
mhm.
Do not use your regular Gmail account, your personal Gmail. I don't think they will. I don't think you can get BAAs with regular Gmail. You need a business account, so you're going to need email. Oh, shout out to
One one
Therasass. Oh,
one thing on that, Brent.
or
I've had a
Hushmo.
couple clients who got sold on from an IT company on like, hey, we'll do this like whole big IT solution and we'll manage all your devices and
Mm,
it'll be very expensive. Sure. I don't think you need IT support, to be honest. I don't know, Brent, your thoughts, but
no.
it's usually multiple thousands of dollars per month and they lock you in for like 2 to 3 years. It's
Yeah.
kind of a crazy hassle.
Yeah.
So yeah, just go easy on the software. If you need tech support, there's contractors who can help you out with that, but don't get locked into like an IT company's help. That's just
Right.
my 2 cents, but just
Yep.
something to think about.
Yep. There's other things like Office 365. I think will do BAs. Gmail, we're just very familiar with it, and it's easy.
Mhm.
There's
Yep.
asked for CRM. So this is probably 6 months after you start your practice, 6 to 8 months, looking into a CRM. Like Theris asked to help organize those leads that are coming to your practice, those who want to schedule an appointment, so no one falls through the cracks. You're going to start to build out your marketing systems, and a CRM like Theris asked can be really helpful with that. Okay, you need a phone line. So recommending for phone lines, you can start off with a Google Voice line. That's part of your Google Workspace suite. If you want that, There's Ask does provide a phone number if you wanted to use it, but you could also use like a Grasshopper. I
Mhm.
think Google Voice is like the cheapest. It might be like $15 a month, right? Just to
Yep.
get something going. If you want a business line, of course, you can always use your personal if you really want to bootstrap it. You wouldn't need the extra functionality some of the other ones, but I think Google Voice is pretty simple. It's already integrated into your Google
Mhm.
Workspace account.
Grasshopper is good though too if you want to go up a level.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're expanding into like a group practice, then you having different voicemail accounts,
Mhm.
boxes can be helpful.
Yep.
Website and web hosting. Yeah. So Acme Child Counseling is going to have a website and it's going to be hosted somewhere. If I was so when I first started, it wasn't a Squarespace. There was something else when I first started. And then I eventually built WordPress websites. But doing something like a Squarespace or a Brighter Vision just to get going, I think is going to be pretty good. So, and you don't have to get crazy with a website. I would start with a homepage. If you go to YouTube and type in brand your practice, I have a recent video on how to build a high engaging homepage for a website. So take a look at that, and you will need hosting. Squarespace and Wix and others, they have all their hosting. You're going to buy a domain through like GoDaddy and Squarespace. You can buy a domain. I recommend actually separating the two if possible. So I would just go GoDaddy or Hostname or what's the other one? Hover.com. That I would buy your domain somewhere else and then connect that domain to Squarespace or to Weebly or to WordPress or
Mhm.
something like that later on. Keep them separate because you're going to want to upgrade and do things, and just having the separate is just easy from a technical standpoint. From doing so many technical things with websites, it's just easier. So any questions on that? What is the name of
Amanda had a question on if I provide online therapy, should I incorporate that into my business name? What are your thoughts there?
You can. Yeah. Throw an idea out and we can give you feedback live. My only thing is online therapy is scary if you're just going to do only online because of the venture capital money going into that space. It's going to be harder to build a brand, but you can do it. It's just going to be a little trickier.
I think you also want to have a niche, especially. I have a client who's online only. They have a really strong niche and they're able to make it work very well, but they also spend quite a bit of money on Google Ads and website costs to kind of fight off, hold that niche, right? So
Yeah.
I think if you have a specific niche, that would definitely be a helpful piece.
Yeah. Good question here from Cindy. Wait, is the domain, let me try to get over to it. Is the domain the host? This is a great question. Hosting is separate from buying a domain. A lot of people so you have a domain that's separate. You pay like $15 a year. Or
The
$20
domain
a
is
year.
the name of the website,
Yeah,
correct?
it's the name of the
Like
website.
you're buying acmechildcounseling.com.
That's right. Yeah, if it's not already bought. acmechildcounseling.com. I would go to GoDaddy and just buy it, hold on to that name, and then you're going to get hosting. Now, Squarespace is a website builder and it hosts your website. Weebly is a website builder and it hosts your website. WordPress is a website builder. You will need to buy hosting for a WordPress website. So that's kind of how
it's almost like three pieces, right? You have the domain, which is the name. You have the hosting, which is making it work and connect to the internet. And then you have the website itself, which is something that you or someone builds onto that hosting.
That's right.
With that name.
Where's that website going to live? You need a hosting plan for that. QuickBooks for finances.
Yeah, I'll go through this relatively fast so we can make sure we keep covering other things. You're going to probably want to get QuickBooks right away. Yes, it will be a cost, but compared to tracking everything on a spreadsheet, I would recommend getting QuickBooks. It's going to be 20, 30, $40 a month, depending on kind of what subscription you get. But what it does is it connects directly to your bank accounts, credit cards, so that everything flows into there and you have records. So when you file taxes at the end of the year, you can just give access to that QuickBooks right to your tax filer. Boom, they can file taxes instead of you having to spend a bunch of hours at the end of the year. So I'd say just get that set up right from the beginning. Yes, it's an added cost, but it's going to be worth it in the long run.
I wish I did it earlier. I wish I had Nate earlier, but I also wish I did QuickBooks earlier.
Right.
Just what is it? $30-$40 a month, something basic.
It's going to be worth the hassle and honestly the cost, right? If you come to like a firm like ours and you're like, hey, I haven't had QuickBooks and I've been around from January for 10 months, we're gonna have to charge you for cleanup. That's going to be expensive. So this will even just save you that cost of getting everything in there. And then I'd say, have some sort of monthly routine for yourself on the finance side. Do your weekly bookkeeping, just enter transactions in. QuickBooks will show you how. Do a monthly review of your numbers, just kind of see where everything is. If you're doing profit first, which is a whole nother conversation, do those allocations. I do recommend reading Profit First. If you are new to business, it will just help you think through cash flow and how you manage your cash. I would not run a business without it. And then just take a quick look at your profit and loss and your statement of cash flows. Those are just two reports inside of QuickBooks. Take a quick gander at those, 5 minutes per month, just to kind of see where your numbers are. And then my third point here is keep track of some numbers in a dashboard. So if you have you're going to have a couple KPIs, which KPIs are just a fancy word of saying the key numbers. So write down, how much revenue do we have?
Indicators, key performance indicators, KPIs.
Sometimes we have acronyms for no reason, but record, profit, number of sessions, revenue, cash flow. Just keep track of that. What you keep track of. There's some sort of saying that goes with that, like what you keep track of is important. I'm not
like
saying
what
that
you
right,
prioritize. You communicate to your team what's most important, the data that you share and track.
Yeah, and to yourself, right? So just have a really simple spreadsheet in Google Sheets, right? That's another benefit of having paying for Google. But just keep track of these, kind of see them month over month and say like, hey, how are we trending? How are things going? And how does this all lining up? So really, when you're new, I think you could probably spend 20, 30 minutes a month and be pretty on top of your finances. It's not going to be like the best solution, it's not going to be the Mercedes of financial solutions, but it's going to be solid. It's going to be good. So just do 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and you'll save yourself in the long run on like cleanup costs, on your accountant having messy books, and it'll give you a good picture of the numbers as well. What gets measured gets done. Thank you, James. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
There it is.
All right. The next one is, as we're coming in, rounding out here, is to create a sales funnel. And some of you are like, well, what's a sales funnel? All right. This is a sales funnel. I'm not going to go through this whole thing because I have a whole presentation on it that you should check out. It's on YouTube, is how to build a powerful sales funnel. But really, this is a marketing framework. Real quick, your sales funnel, curiosity. Can you solve my problem? That's the question people are asking. When they come to your website, to your homepage, you better have a brand message that talks about how you solve people's problem. That's the only reason why they're at your website. Can you solve my problem? Now, if they say, yes, you can solve my problem, now they're asking, can I trust you? This is the enlightenment stage. So part of your sales funnel maybe include a blog or some videos. This is mostly website based. Okay. And then the commitment is take my money. If they're like, yes, I trust you, I want you to take my money. Make sure you have a clear call to action. What is that action that you want them to take on your website? Is that filling out a form? Is that making a phone call? All right. And so I know I've seen a couple of Therasas subscribers on the call, and that's where Therasas can help out in that commitment stage and capturing that information. But this is going to be part of this webinar is to help you think like a business owner. We're talking a little bit about operations, finances, and marketing all in one. So this video will give you it's a little bit of a boot camp on marketing for your private practice.
That YouTube thumbnail is hilarious.
You like that? It's me pointing at myself.
I know, it's great.
All right. First thing is website and lead magnet to grow an email list. If Acme Child Counseling, we are going to build a website, at least a homepage, and we're going to have a lead magnet on there called something like the 15 signs of childhood anxiety and or 15 ways to parent an anxious child, right? Not everyone who comes to your website is ready to schedule an appointment, but you want to continue that conversation with them. And so having a lead magnet or a lead generator on your website, and what that is it's a little, we've all done it, right? It's a pop-up that says, hey, would you like to download this free resource? And you're like, sure. And you give an email and your name, and then you get sent the resource. That's all that is. It's a free resource that you give them to help grow an email list. You guys all who joined on the webinar today, put in your name and email. A webinar is a lead magnet. Okay. Lots of different lead magnets out there. But for Acme Child Counseling, it's going to be 15 ways to parent an anxious child, 15 strategies or tools or something like that. Get that email and we can start to nurture them and build that relationship with them on using email automation. And that's another webinar. Am I right, Nate? Okay. So there's aggressive outreach to referral partners. The digital landscape has changed. There's so much money coming into the market. It's hard to rank a website on Google these days unless you've been around for a while. So what Nate and I are going to do is we're going to go out shaking hands. We're going to bring flowers and lunch to people, to other practice owners. And because we're private pay, we're going to focus on other private pay practice owners and meet with them because nobody knows we exist, Nate. We're nobodies.
We're going to bring them cookies. We're going to find what they like, and we're going to bring them some sort of tangible item because if you're just dropping off a flyer, throw it away. If you give them something that they like, that they can keep, they're going to remember you a lot longer.
Yeah. Well, here's a ninja trick. So for some of my partnership clients, Nate, I don't know if we told you, some of the referrals were starting to drop, and I was like, all right, we are going to lean into word of mouth referral partners. And so I said, we track referral partners. So I was like, all right, for the top 10 referrals partners that we have, I'm going to send them flowers on behalf of you. And no joke, people started sending them more patients again, more clients. Mm-hmm. And they also wrote thank you notes and called them, say, thank you so much for these beautiful flowers. So you build in a little reciprocity. Now, here's the reason why we're doing this. People will send you clients if they trust you. If they don't know you, they can't trust you. So a lot of this is relationship building and just building trust. Yep. All right. So Nate, we are aggressive. A big part of our budget is doing this.
And just a note too, I sometimes see people networking. They're like, oh, we'll just go to lunch with a bunch of different people, and that's fine. But I think sending something, like you're saying, a tangible item with maybe a handwritten note goes a lot further because it's going to sit on their desk. They're going to think about it, and they need you to be front of mind to make that referral. If some other child therapist is more front of mind than you are, you're not going to get that referral, right? So this is something, Giftology is a great book to read that talks all about this as far as cultivating these referrals, but it's cultivation. It's something you're going to need to do throughout the year. Maybe 2-3 times a year, you're sending something to all your referral partners, sending them a quick note. But I mean, think about it. If it's a $60 cost to send flowers or food, if they refer you one person, that's paying for it, right? And they're probably going to refer you more than one person. So it's definitely worth your time and your money.
All right, we're rounding out. So quick, put in your questions because we have a hard stop at 1 o'clock Central Time here. Okay, so if you go to brandyourpractice.com, I'm just gonna. Do I have it in here? Yeah, I'm gonna put it back in the chat. brandyourpractice.com/startup-guide. I got a free checklist here. I got a lead generator. If you haven't done it yet, it's a whole blog post and a checklist that you can read and download. Nate and I are putting on, if you're here and you got a group practice already, May 1 through May 3 here in beautiful Chicago in the Oak Park area, we are hosting the Group Practice Scaling Summit. So we're talking operations, finances, and marketing for group practice owners. There's no fluff. It's just practical. It's tactical. It's fantastical is what it is. So you can go to practicescalingsummit.com and sign up. We're capping it at 50 people. And this will be our second year. First year was awesome. We had some really good discussions. The whole idea is group practice owners coming together. You hear some really cool ideas on how to run a practice, whether it's the operation structures, how to hire, how to fire, marketing, all that stuff. And then you get to ask questions and learn from each other. We're purposely keeping it small. All right. So last thing, how to scale your private practice. It'll be another webinar that we will do in the not too distant future. Probably in November, we'll get on that. Okay, so now we're jumping over to questions. I'll keep it on this. And we do have a question here. Cindy has another good question. How much social media presence is really necessary? I'm middle-aged and shy. No need to be shy, Cindy. I don't know if this is the dirty secret of social. I get asked this all the time. Here's the dirty secret of social media. You're probably going to be sharing social media posts from your business account, whether that's LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. Nobody's going to see it. Nobody's going to see it unless you pay LinkedIn or Meta, Facebook, for you to see that post. You could try on TikTok. You get a little more organic reach, but it's pay to play now. So I don't even bother with it. I do have some, if you're going to post, you post from your personal account, build your personal brand. That's what I have my virtual assistant do. She just posts everything through TheraSAS, which goes to LinkedIn and YouTube. And if you were going to do social media, I would hire an inexpensive virtual assistant to do that for you, to create those posts, which is like maybe a whole nother webinar on how to do it. Oh, what Cindy feels free. She's free from the burden of the social media pressure.
Yep, that's right.
So yeah,
put your dollars into
this webinar gave Cindy a gift today. Thank you, Cindy. Other questions on here, please post it. Let's see here. Yeah, I have no other thoughts. This was good. This actually went. I didn't realize we got through the whole thing pretty good.
Yeah, we did it. And like you said, we're going to do part 2. That's going to talk a little bit more about scaling up your practice. So this is more like, hey, from startup, what do you want to be thinking about? Part 2 is going to talk about, all right, now if we're scaling up either as a solo or as a group and starting to hire others, get into that whole piece. We're going to be talking about that. So that'll be exciting as well.
All right. Be sure to to check out bookkeeping.us.
See if you can spell bookkeeping. Yeah, there you go.
Can I do it? Did I spell it? It's really tiny on my screen. Okay, so Navigator Bookkeeping. That's not Nate, but it's his lookalike. It's his doppelganger.
That's right.
Yeah. You're welcome, Roger. Yeah, you're welcome, Debbie. And then also lots of resources on brandyourpractice.com. So you can go to my blog or the free resource link up there. And I got a ton of free guides. So be sure to check them out. All right, Cindy. Thanks, Debbie. All right. I think we are good.
Thank you, everyone.
Let's end a minute early and I'll jump on my next call. Nate, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, everyone.